Personal log. Commander Cracks, Head Combat Instructor at Centauri Military Academy. Date: Standard Galactic Year 3457. And now they expect us to train humans. Has the High Command lost their minds? I growled, pacing across my office aboard Space Station Atlas 7. The pristine metal walls reflected my agitation as my secondary arms twitched with frustration. My third eye kept darting to the stack of transfer orders on my desk, each bearing the seal of the Galactic Defense Force. Let me tell you something about humans. They look ridiculous. No protective exoskeleton, no secondary limbs. Their bones, pure calcium. Not even reinforced with proper metals like every other sentient species. When the integration order came through, I thought it was a practical joke from my old academy buddy, Admiral Music KNX. But no, here I stood, in my state-of-the-art training facility, preparing to welcome the first batch of recruits to the most prestigious combat training program in the galaxy. The Centauri Military Academy had produced the finest warriors across 12 galaxies for over 10,000 years. Our graduates commanded battleships that could shatter planets. Our combat specialists had ended wars before they began. Commander, Lieutenant PX interrupted my brooding. The human transport has cleared final decontamination. I flicked my primary antenna in acknowledgement. Wonderful, simply wonderful. Did they remember to pack their gravity compensators, or should we reduce our standard 3G environment to accommodate their fragile forms? PX's scales shifted to an embarrassed purple. Sir, they declined the gravity compensation offers. What? I stopped pacing. My ridge spines rose in surprise. Do they have a death wish? Even the Carrick use compensators in our training facilities. The transport's arrival alert echoed through the station. Through the reinforced viewing panels, I watched the sleek vessel dock with our primary bay. It looked comically small next to our standard troop carriers. The humans had adapted one of their civilian ships for military transport, claiming it was more, what was their word, cost-effective. Gather the current class, I ordered PX. Let them see what the High Command has saddled us with. And make sure Medical Bay 6 is prepped. I give these humans 2 hours before the gravity starts crushing their primitive cardiovascular systems. As I made my way to the docking bay, my mind wandered to the briefing files. The human military had achieved some minor victories in their sector, mostly against pirate bands and rogue mining operations. But this was the Centauri Academy. We trained warriors who could punch through battleship armor with their bare hands. The integration program was supposed to strengthen diplomatic ties between Earth and the Galactic Alliance. In my opinion, we should have sent them some basic defense technology and called it a day. But no. Some bright spark in command thought actual integration would show goodwill. The docking bay doors slid open with a satisfying hiss. My current class of cadets had assembled, all 40 of them, representing the finest species the galaxy had to offer. Tall, proud Andorians with their silicon-based muscle structures, graceful Nexar, whose neural processing speed made them living weapons. Even a pair of Bronx warriors, their gravitational manipulation fields humming softly. Attention! My voice echoed across the bay. The cadets snapped to perfect formation, their various anatomies aligned with military precision. Today marks a historic moment. The first human recruits join our ranks. You will observe their capabilities, you will assess their weaknesses, and you will remember that the High Command, in their infinite wisdom. The airlock cycled. My words died in my throat as the first human stepped through. The entire assembly went silent, and I heard distinct clicking sounds as multiple cadets activated their visual enhancement feeds to make sure they were seeing correctly. Standing before us, without any visible life support or gravity compensation equipment, was what appeared to be the most unimpressive biped creature I had ever seen. And this? This was supposed to be the future of galactic military cooperation? I felt a headache building in all three of my brains. This was going to be a very long training cycle. The human stood at attention, and I forced myself to begin the standard identification protocol. State your name and prior military affiliation for the record. Marcus Bennett, sir. United Earth Defense Force, 7th Orbital Division. His voice carried clearly across the docking bay, showing no strain from our enhanced gravity. Interesting. I circled the human, noting his measurements against the standard recruitment parameters. Height, ably inadequate. Muscle mass, barely registering on our scanners. Bone density. Well, at least it was within minimal acceptable ranges for space travel. Tell me, Bennett, I said, letting my secondary arms perform the standard threat assessment gestures. Did your superiors explain the physical requirements of our program? Yes, sir. Full briefing received and acknowledged, sir. Behind him, I noticed Cadet Rexus, one of our Andorian specialists, covering his primary breathing pore in what passed for their version of a snicker. Several other cadets were displaying similar signs of amusement. The Bronx warriors had activated their gravitational fields, probably betting on how long before the human collapsed. At ease, I commanded, more out of curiosity than protocol. The human shifted his stance smoothly, showing no signs of distress. The medical monitors built into the docking bay floor were reporting normal vital signs, for a human anyway. Commander, Cadet Rexus stepped forward, his crystalline muscles gleaming under the bay lights. Perhaps we should give our new friend a demonstration of standard training protocols. I recognized the tone. Every cycle, there were always a few cadets who wanted to establish dominance early. Usually, I discouraged such behavior, but today, I was curious. Proceed, Cadet Rexus. Training protocol 7 inches. The Andorian moved with fluid grace, his enhanced musculature propelling him through a series of combat stances. Each position generated enough force to shatter reinforced armor, his limbs becoming a literal blur as he accelerated beyond normal visual tracking speeds. Marcus Bennett watched quietly, his expression unchanged. This bothered me more than I cared to admit. Impressive display, sir, Bennett said when Rexus finished. The energy conservation in the third sequence was particularly noteworthy. Rexus's secondary heart nearly stopped. You could follow that? Of course, sir. The movements aligned closely with several Earth martial arts principles, just executed at higher velocities. A murmur ran through the assembled cadets. The Nexar twins in the back row were rapidly exchanging neural signals, their confusion evident in their fluctuating aura patterns. Perhaps, suggested Cadet Tsar, her tentacles writhing with barely contained mirth, our human friend would like to demonstrate his own combat capabilities. Now this I had to see. Bennett, combat stance. The human moved into position, and I heard several cadets activating their recording functions. This would undoubtedly provide entertainment during the next rest cycle. His stance was wrong, all wrong. Centers of gravity misaligned, limbs positioned inefficiently, no secondary or tertiary backup postures. It went against every principle of advanced combat we taught here. Yet something in my combat instructor's intuition twitched. The stance looked wrong, but it felt balanced, like a puzzle where all the pieces were deliberately placed upside down. Sir, Bennett spoke, still maintaining his position. Request permission to access the training floor's full gravity controls. Denied, I snapped. Those controls are for advanced training scenarios only. No recruit touches them before completing basic certification. Understood, sir. Just thought I'd ask. Was that a smile? In this gravity? The next few minutes were filled with the standard intake procedures, assignment of quarters, distribution of training schedules, and basic facility orientation. Throughout it all, Bennett maintained that same quiet demeanour, absorbing information with unexpected efficiency. One final thing, I announced as the procedures concluded. As per tradition, new recruits must select their training partners for the first cycle. Choose carefully, Bennett. Your survival may depend on it. The human's eyes scanned the assembled cadets. The Bronx warriors stepped back slightly, their gravitational fields intensifying. No one wanted to be stuck training a weak species. "With respect, sir," Bennett said, "I would like to request Cadet Rexus as my primary training partner." The docking bay erupted in multiple frequencies of laughter. Rexus's crystalline form literally sparkled with amusement. "You want to train with our top combat specialist? The cadet who just demonstrated moves you couldn't hope to match in 1,000 cycles." "Yes, sir, unless the objection is his," Bennett replied. Rexus stepped forward, his secondary arms already forming the traditional acceptance gestures. "I accept. This will be educational for all of us." As the cadets filed out, I noticed something odd. Bennett's vital signs hadn't fluctuated once during the entire process, not during the demonstrations, not during the mockery, not even during the partner selection. Either the human was exceptionally well trained at controlling his biological responses, or no, impossible. These humans were barely out of their gravity wells. They couldn't possibly, could they? Personal Log Addendum. First Training Cycle, Day 1. Begin physical assessment. My voice boomed through the training arena as 20 different holographic obstacle courses materialized. Each cadet would face challenges tailored to their species' known capabilities. For Bennett, I had programmed the course used for juvenile Nexar. Even that might prove too challenging. First test, endurance protocols, I announced, watching as his environmental controls adjusted. Complete 50 laps of your designated track, gravity increasing by 0.5 g every 10 laps. The cadets took off. Rexus immediately took the lead, his crystalline form glinting as he accelerated. The Bronx warriors activated their gravity manipulation fields, practically floating through their laps. Even the Nexar twins moved with impressive speed, their neural networks optimizing every stride. Bennett started at a steady pace, not fast, not slow, just moving. "Having trouble keeping up, soft skin?" Rexus called out as he lapped the human for the third time. "Perhaps we should requisition you a transport vehicle." The other cadets laughed, their various respiratory systems creating a symphony of alien amusement. Bennett kept running. By lap 30, the gravity had increased to 4.5 g. 3 cadets had already dropped out, their bodies unable to handle the strain. Rexus was showing signs of fatigue, his crystalline structure beginning to dull from the effort. Bennett kept running. Same pace, same rhythm, same steady breathing. "Commander," Lieutenant PX whispered, holding up a medical scanner. "The human's vital signs. They're stable. Impossible." I grabbed the scanner. "Check for equipment malfunction." But the readings were clear. Heart rate elevated but within sustainable ranges. Oxygen consumption optimal. Lactic acid buildup minimal. By lap 45, only Rexus and Bennett remained on the track. The gravity now pushed at 5.75 g. Rexus's steps had become laboured, his superior physiology fighting against the crushing force. Bennett kept running. When the final lap concluded, the training arena fell silent. Rexus collapsed, his cooling systems working overtime. Bennett stopped, walked to the hydration station, and took a single sip of water. "Beginner's luck," someone muttered. Weapon drills. I barked, trying to shake off my unease. Standard issue plasma rifles, 10 rounds, moving targets. Now this would show proper skill differences. Our weapons were designed for multi-limbed species, with neural interface controls and gravitational compensation systems. Bennett struggled to even hold the rifle correctly. His 2 arms fumbled with controls meant for 4. The neural interface, unable to properly sync with his primitive nervous system, sparked and fizzled. "Watch and learn, human," Rexus said, hefting his rifle with practiced ease. His shots rang out, each one finding its mark with surgical precision. This is how a real warrior handles advanced weaponry. The cadets took turns, most showing acceptable accuracy. When Bennett's turn came, his first shot went wide, missing the target completely. His second barely grazed the outer ring. By the fifth shot, snickers had turned to outright laughter. "Perhaps we should give him a slingshot instead," Zar suggested, her tentacles rippling with amusement. Bennett finished his round with only 2 hits within scoring range, the worst performance I'd seen in 20 cycles of training. Hand-to-hand combat. I announced, partner sparring, no augmentations, no gravity, manipulation. Rexus stepped onto the mat, his crystalline form settling into a perfect combat stance. Bennett stood opposite him, assuming that same wrong but not wrong stance from the docking bay. "Begin!" Rexus moved first, his primary arms launching a traditional Andorian strike pattern. Fast, precise, overwhelming. Bennett stepped aside, just stepped aside. The crystalline warrior's momentum carried him forward, his perfect form suddenly looking less perfect. He recovered quickly, launching into a secondary attack sequence. Bennett moved again. No wasted motion, no flashy techniques, just not being where the attacks landed. "Stand and fight, coward," Rexus growled, his frustration evident in the dulling of his usually bright form. "I am fighting," Bennett replied, still moving with that maddening efficiency. "Just not the way you expect." The sparring session ended with neither cadet scoring a decisive hit. Rexus, despite his superior strength and speed, couldn't land a solid blow. Bennett, despite his apparent skill at avoidance, never launched a counterattack. "Pathetic," I announced, hiding my confusion behind criticism. "A warrior must strike, not just avoid being struck. Return to quarters and prepare for tomorrow's advanced weapons training." As the cadets filed out, I noticed Bennett examining the plasma rifle he'd struggled with earlier. His fingers traced the neural interface points, his eyes narrowing in concentration. "Something fascinating about your failure, recruit?" I asked. "Just studying the design, sir," he replied. "These interfaces, they're calibrated for multiple nerve clusters, aren't they? Distributed neural load." I blinked all 3 eyes. "That's correct." "Interesting approach," he said, returning the weapon to its rack. "Thank you, sir. Looking forward to tomorrow's lessons." Later that night, reviewing the day's footage in my office, I noticed something odd. During the endurance test, Bennett's foot placement had never varied, not by a millimetre. Even under increasing gravity, his stride remained perfectly consistent. The combat footage showed similar patterns. His seemingly clumsy movements with the plasma rifle followed a distinct sequence. His sparring session, viewed frame by frame, revealed positioning that always kept him at optimal distance from Rexus's strikes. "Lieutenant PX," I called over the comm, "access the archived footage from the docking bay floor, specifically the pressure plate readings from Bennett's arrival." The data appeared on my screen and my headache returned with full force. The human hadn't been struggling under our gravity at all. He had been practicing. Personal log addendum. First training cycle, day 7. "Today, cadets," I announced, pressing my palm against the biometric lock of our most secure weapons vault, "you face the ultimate test of combat worthiness." The massive doors slid apart with a pressurized hiss, revealing a single weapon mounted on a gravity-stabilized pedestal, 3 meters of gleaming alloys and pulsing power cores. "The Titan-class plasma cannon," I said. "Grand Commander Nexos used this very weapon to end the Proxima War." I watched their expressions. One clean shot through an enemy dreadnought's quantum shields. 50,000 lives saved in an instant. The cadets stood in reverent silence. Even Rexus's crystalline form had stopped its usual shimmer. The Titan class represents the pinnacle of galactic weapon engineering, I continued, walking around the pedestal. Multiphasic energy distribution, quantum lock targeting systems, and most importantly, a pure neutronium frame that requires exceptional physical strength to operate. I paused near Bennett, who studied the weapon with that same maddeningly calm expression. 50 years, I let the words hang in the air. 50 years since any cadet managed to complete the qualification course with this weapon. Most can't even lift it properly. Those who can lack the neural capacity to handle its targeting systems. The few who master both. Their bodies buckle under its energy requirements. Lieutenant PX stepped forward, activating the holographic training course. Targets materialized throughout the massive chamber, each one representing a different combat scenario. The qualification requirements are simple, I said. Power up the weapon, hit 10 targets within the time limit, maintain structural integrity of your skeletal system while doing so. Any questions? Zara raised a tentacle. Commander, is it true that Grand Commander Nexos suffered multiple bone fractures? After his legendary shot, 17 breaks in his primary arms alone, I confirmed. The medical logs state he considered it a fair trade. The cadets murmured among themselves. Stories of the Titan class were taught in every military academy across the galaxy. Its impossible requirements had become synonymous with the pinnacle of warrior achievement. Cadet Rickus, I barked, you've shown exceptional progress this cycle. Care to demonstrate? The Andorian stepped forward, his crystalline muscles tensing visibly. He gripped the cannon's neural interface points, and for a moment I thought he might succeed. The weapon lifted 3 centimeters off its pedestal before crashing back down. Proximity alerts indicate potential crystalline stress fractures, the weapon's AI announced. Access denied. One by one, the cadets attempted to master the legendary weapon. The Bronx warrior's gravity manipulation proved useless against its quantum-locked mass. The Nari twins' neural capabilities couldn't compensate for their physical limitations. Well, Bennett, I turned to the human, care to add your name to the list of failures? He stepped forward and the other cadets moved back, anticipating entertainment. Sir, he said, studying the weapon's control surfaces. These markings near the power core, they're warning indicators, correct? They alert the user to potentially fatal energy discharge levels, I replied. Not that you'll need to worry about those. Bennett nodded, still examining the weapon. And this secondary grip here? It's meant to distribute the load across multiple limbs, obviously. RXs, he interjected. Even juvenile cadets know the basic principles of multi-limbed weapon distribution. Perhaps we should get you a training manual with pictures. The laughter that followed died quickly as Bennett reached for the cannon. Sir, he said, hands hovering over the grips, request permission to attempt the qualification course. I flicked my primary antenna in amusement. Permission granted, recruit. Try not to damage our most valuable training asset with your inevitable failure. The entire room held its breath as Bennett's hands wrapped around the Titan-class plasma cannon grips. The weapon's eye sprang to life, its sensors scanning the human's biologicals. Warning, it announced, unknown species detected, no baseline performance data available, proceed with caution. I waited for the inevitable, the weapon to prove too heavy for the neural interface, to reject his primitive nervous system, for his calcium-based bones to shatter under the stress. But what happened next would change everything I thought I knew about warfare and humans. Personal Log Addendum. First training cycle, day 7. Continued. Have you ever witnessed something so impossible that your brain refused to process it? As a combat instructor for over 30 years, I thought I had seen everything. I was wrong. The qualification course sprang to life around us. Holographic barriers materialized, creating a complex maze of obstacles. Target drones buzzed to life, their shield generators humming. The course was designed to test not just accuracy, but mobility, strategic thinking, and raw physical endurance. "Begin at the ready position," I commanded, expecting Bennett to fail before even lifting the weapon. He stepped forward, placing his hands on the Titan-class cannon. The weapon's neural interface flickered to life, scanning his biological readings. "Warning," the AI announced again. "Unknown species parameters detected. Safety protocols engaging at maximum level." Then Bennett lifted the cannon. Not just lifted it, he hoisted the 3-metre length of neutronium and quantum electronics as if it were a training rifle. The entire room went silent. Even the Bronx warrior's gravity fields fluctuated in surprise. "Impossible," Rexus whispered, his crystalline form clouding with confusion. "First target sequence," I announced, my voice surprisingly steady. "Commence firing." The qualification course erupted into motion. Barrier panels shifted, target drones weaved through complex patterns. The first target, a simulated gunship, appeared at long range. Bennett moved the cannon, a weapon that had broken countless warriors, swinging smoothly in his hands. The targeting system engaged with a high-pitched whine. "Neural load exceeding safety parameters," the AI warned. Bennett fired. The blast of superheated plasma struck the target dead center, vaporizing its shields instantly. Without pausing, he pivoted to track the second target. Another shot, another free hit. "Look at his stance," Lieutenant PX exclaimed. "He's compensating for the recoil by using it," I finished. My professional interest overriding my disbelief, Bennett wasn't fighting the weapon's massive recoil. He was letting it flow through his body, using the momentum to spin toward the next target. The third and fourth targets appeared simultaneously, weaving through holographic buildings. 2 shots, 2 hits. The cannon's power core pulsed brighter with each discharge. "Temperature approaching critical levels," the AI announced. "Recommended cool-down period 2 minutes." Bennett ignored the warning. The 5th target, a fast-moving drone, juked and spun through the course. The human tracked it, waited, then fired. The plasma bolt curved slightly, following the drone's trajectory and striking it from behind. "He's using the magnetic field distortion to bend the shot," Zara's tentacles writhed in agitation. "That's a theoretical technique. It's never been successfully demonstrated. 6, 7, 8. Each shot found its mark with increasing precision. The cannon's power core blazed like a miniature sun. "Final targets deploying," I announced. "Maximum difficulty engaged." The last 2 targets appeared at opposite ends of the course, moving at speeds that made them barely visible. Traditional combat doctrine said to take them one at a time, accepting the time penalty. Bennett raised the cannon to his shoulder, adjusted his grip, and did the unthinkable. He fired at the wall. The plasma bolt struck the reinforced barrier at a precise angle, splitting into 2 distinct streams of energy. Each stream curved around the course's obstacles, homing in on the targets from multiple angles. Both targets vaporized simultaneously. "Qualification course complete," the AI announced into the dead silence. "Time, 17 seconds. New course record established. Previous record, 43 seconds, held by Grand Commander Nexos." Bennett lowered the cannon gently back onto its pedestal. Steam rose from the neural interface points where they had contacted his skin. The power core's glow gradually faded to its normal levels. "Thank you, sir," he said, stepping back to his position in line. "Permission to return to ranks?" I stared at the human. His vital signs showed elevated but stable readings. No broken bones, no neural damage, not even the usual microstructural tears in muscle tissue that most species suffer from handling the cannon. How? The question escaped before I could maintain proper instructor decorum. That weapon requires at least 4 limbs to distribute the mass. The neural load alone should have overloaded your nervous system. The recoil should have shattered every bone in your body. Bennett looked thoughtful for a moment. "Well, sir, about that, humans don't distribute neural loads the same way other species do. Our nervous system might be primitive, but it's, what's the word, adaptable. As for the physical requirements, he shrugged, I grew up in a 2G mining colony. This feels pretty normal. A mining colony? My third eye twitched. You're a miner. Yes, sir. Third generation. Heavy equipment operator. The cannon's really not that different from the plasma drills we use for deep core extraction. Though I have to say, your targeting system is much more responsive. The silence in the training hall grew heavier. Every cadet stared at the human who had just casually rewritten everything we thought we knew about combat capabilities. Lieutenant PX cleared her throat. Commander, should I update the qualification records? I looked at my data pad, at the historical combat footage I had studied for years, at the medical records of countless warriors who had tried and failed to master the Titan-class cannon. No, Lieutenant, I said finally, create a new category. Personal log. Commander Cracks, final entry of first integrated training cycle. Again, RX's called out, his crystalline form gleaming with excitement. Show me that grip adjustment one more time. I watched from my office viewport as Bennett demonstrated the human technique for handling recoil. 2 weeks had passed since the Titan-class qualification course, and everything had changed. The training floor below had been transformed. Humans and aliens worked side by side, each learning from the other's strengths. The Nexar twins had adapted human stance techniques to improve their neural efficiency. The Bronx warriors studied human momentum control to enhance their gravity manipulation. Commander Lieutenant PX entered with the latest training statistics. You need to see these results. The numbers told an extraordinary story. Combat efficiency up 40% across all species. Neural interface adaptation rates improved by 60%. Even physical endurance scores showed remarkable increases. They never stopped to question if something was impossible, I muttered, watching Bennett teach a group of cadets. They just kept trying until they found a way. Sir? PX tilted her head questioningly. Humans, Lieutenant, while we focused on enhancing our natural advantages, they worked on overcoming their limitations. We built better gravity compensators. They adapted to different gravity levels. We developed neural interfaces. They learned to rewire their own nervous systems through practice. Below, Zara had joined the training group. Her tentacles moved in perfect sync with Bennett's movements as he demonstrated a modified combat stance, the same stance I had dismissed as wrong during his arrival. Send a message to High Command, I ordered. The integration program exceeded all expectations. Recommend immediate expansion to all major training facilities. Already done, sir, Nine replied with a knowing look. They responded with orders to triple our human recruitment quota for next cycle. A commotion from the training floor drew my attention. RXs had successfully executed a perfect human-style combat role while maintaining neural connection with a heavy weapon. The gathered cadets burst into appreciative cheers. You know what amazes me most, Lieutenant? Not their strength, not their adaptability. It's their willingness to share, to teach. The first thing Bennett did after mastering the Titan-class cannon, he started analysing how to make it accessible to other species. Speaking of the cannon, sir, PX brought up another report. Engineering just completed their analysis of Bennett's handling techniques. They're proposing modifications to all heavy weapons based on his approach. Preliminary tests show a 35% reduction in neural load. I moved to the window, watching the training sessions below. Humans learning alien combat forms, aliens adopting human innovations, the boundaries between species blurred by shared purpose and mutual respect. When I started this program, I thought we were doing the humans a favour, I admitted, lifting them up to our level of combat expertise. I never considered that they would lift us up instead. Pick finished. We all had something to learn, I corrected. Send word to the Earth Defence Force. Tell them we're ready to begin Phase 2 of the integration. full exchange of combat doctrines. As I watched Bennett and RXs demonstrate a combined human and Dorian combat form to an entranced audience, I remembered my initial dismissal of human potential. How wrong I had been. "One more thing, Lieutenant," I added. "Update the Titan-class cannon designation in our records. From now on, it's classified as a standard training weapon, not a legendary artifact. Let's see what the next generation of warriors can achieve when they start without preconceptions." The training floor erupted in another round of cheers. Someone had apparently combined human momentum techniques with Bronx gravity manipulation to achieve something entirely new. Innovation, born from cooperation. Final log entry for this training cycle. I dictated as Pick prepared to leave. Initial assessment of human military potential, severely underestimated. Recommendation for future interactions. Approach with open minds and high expectations. Personal addendum. I paused, watching Bennett demonstrate yet another impossible feat with casual ease. The galaxy just became a much more interesting place. Lieutenant Pick smiled as she headed for the door. "Shall I have them prepare the Titan-class cannon for tomorrow's general training rotation?" I nodded, my third eye fixed on the scene below. "PX, double the gravity in the training room. Let's see what else our cadets can achieve when they stop believing in limitations." The future of galactic warfare had changed forever, not through superior technology or advanced biology, but through the simple human trait of refusing to accept impossible as an answer. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, I knew other training academies would soon learn the same lesson we had. Never underestimate a species that treats the impossible as a personal challenge.